So even before COVID hit, I had been thinking a lot about super short horror films that I could do just in my apartment. We actually did one back in 2019 that I'm pretty proud of. However, even projects like that weren't really safe or practical to do during the pandemic, so I started thinking about going even smaller. My wife, Oriana, and I, we thought about what we could do just ourselves, just here in our apartment, just the two of us, and this is what we ended up with. Just want to remind you that this was your idea.
It was. This is a thing that, as new residents of Los Angeles, we're simply not used to dealing with.
It is just LA, I'm pretty sure stands for leaf blowers, always. It is just an endless cacophony of leaf blowers, except there's no leaves. There's no leaves. They're just blowing around dirt. The final product is called Stay at Home. Originally, I was actually going to release each short individually, but they didn't really feel consequential enough to stand on their own. And it was actually Oriana who first suggested that I put them all together, which immediately felt right. Having this anthology that sort of summed up the pandemic and quarantine and that general feeling of unease and malaise that we all had felt good. Rude. In order to get the brown banana to suddenly be brown from the yellow one, we're putting it in the oven because that's what the internet told us to do. So we'll see if that works. I think it looks amazing.
Pretty good, actually.
Pretty good. So
I mean, the other side is...
Well, we won't show that side.
fine.
Good little hack, though. For gear, I have a Panasonic GH5S. I'm actually a bit of a Panasonic stan, which I know puts me in the minority. This is actually what I'm recording on right now. With that being said, I'm not a gear guy. My philosophy is whatever you have, just use that. I mean, if all you have is your phone, that's fine. So don't let a lack of gear stop you from just going out and making a movie. I pretty much used a 24mm prime lens. I'll explain why it was pretty much in a minute. It was actually a Canon lens, but I have a Metabones speed booster, so I'm able to attach EF mounts to the GH5S, which is a micro four thirds. I also prefer a little wider lenses, 24s, 28s, somewhere around there. I just think they help accentuate movement and facial expressions, and they're especially handy in small spaces like apartments. So why did I say mostly used a 24 prime earlier? Because the focal ring broke just as we were wrapping up the second shoot, instant shipping, which sucked. Watch out for used lenses on eBay is the lesson here. Fortunately, I had another lens for work, but it was a Canon mount, so I was able to throw it on. It's a 16-35. It was a zoom rather than a prime. Overall, I really like the 16-35. I've been using it for years. It's just a nice, reliable, good-looking lens. It gets a good picture quality for the price, and it's just a good workhorse lens. The only annoying thing is that my 24 prime went down to an f2.8, whereas this one only goes down to an f4. Again, it was only a couple of shots and instant shipping where I had to use the 16-35, so hopefully that aperture change isn't too noticeable. So the lighting in this apartment is interesting. There's a ton of recessed lights, and they're all on dimmers, which is great. It actually gives me a lot of control, and because all the walls are white, you get a decent bounce. So even though they're all overhead lights, you don't have really harsh overhead shadows. I do have a few LED, little just basic LED panels that I could use to kind of create some fill here and there when needed. It's not the most cinematic look, you know, Barry Lyndon the Saint, but it worked for what we were doing. I did also buy a little LED panel. It has settings for to replicate candles and campfires, televisions. I'm trying to recreate the glow of a laptop monitor. It claims that it creates like a TV style flicker. I'm not entirely sure I believe that right now. I guess sort of. My biggest concern going into this was the acting, specifically the fact that neither Oriana or I are actors. I kind of go out of my way to keep myself out of my movies, but because we just didn't have access to actors, we just kind of bit the bullet and decided to get in front of the camera. One of the things that works to our advantage is that there's not a ton of dialogue, although Oriana crushes hers.
Alyssa, turn the TV back on.
Finally, I thought I'd just run over quickly a few of our VFX shots. You can tell that they're pretty basic, and that was mostly by design. I'll preface this by saying, if you can do something practically in camera, do it. There's a reason why The Thing, the John Carpenter version, still holds up so well, whereas the remake, where it was all done in post, already looks like. But if this is your only choice, everything I did here was done in some combination of After Effects, Photoshop, and Premiere. It's all really basic stuff. You don't need any additional plugins or software besides the Adobe suite. We kind of purposefully did quick cutaways, jump scares, so that, you know, if you were to linger on these shots, you could kind of see the jankiness of them. But because we did them quickly, I think mostly they hold up okay. A great example is the arm coming out of the box and grabbing my face. I have a little green screen that I just filmed some plates of my arm, both still and with some movement to give myself options, and then I keyed it out and manipulated it with color correcting and some mesh warping to make it a little more spindly, a little more monstery, and that was basically it.
That's why we've got 2 tickets to the gun show.
Please. You know, if I had a crew and a budget, I would absolutely hire somebody to actually create a monster arm. I think that's always looks better. Same general principle applies for the fly swatting scene where her arm goes dead. In this case, I took a still of her arm, I isolated the arm, and then just did some airbrushing, some basic color correcting, played around to make it look dead, and then just went into After Effects and did some basic masking, expanded the mask, the feathering. Anyone can do it if you have access to Adobe. So like I said, most of this film was done for no budget, as I'm sure you could tell. The one thing I did splurge on, and would recommend you splurge on as well, is the score. I've been working with a composer, Josh Sapola. His scores just make these things so much better. And if I tried to do it myself, I'm not John Carpenter, it would be garbage. So shout out to Josh. I put his website in the description below. If you're looking for a good composer for something, reach out to him. He's great, and he will make your movie better. All right, well, so that's more or less how we did it. The idea here was mostly just to stay limber, not let our creative muscles atrophy like the rest of our muscles have during this pandemic. Hopefully the next projects we do will have budgets, we'll have, collaborators, people we can work with again. I really miss having a crew, being a part of a crew. So get out there, make your own stuff, and if you enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe, because I am going to be doing more shorts in the future, as well as more videos like this, hopefully. Thanks for watching.